It's a word you've probably seen on parking signs, heard in sports, or come across in everyday conversations. But if you pause for a second, it doesn't quite explain itself. Handicap sounds oddly specific, almost like it should describe something physical, yet its meaning today goes far beyond that. So how did a word like this end up tied to disability and accessibility in the first place? Why do we even use this term at all? The answer turns out to be more unexpected than you might think, shaped by history, language, and changing social attitudes over time. Let's get into it, right here, on History of Simple Things. The word handicap didn't originally have anything to do with disability at all. In its earliest known use in English, it referred to a system designed to create fairness between people or groups that were not equally matched. The focus was not on labeling individuals, but on adjusting conditions so that competition or exchange could happen on more equal terms. It was commonly used when one side had an advantage and some form of compensation was introduced to balance things out. Over time, however, the meaning slowly drifted away from describing systems or arrangements and began to be applied more directly to people themselves. This shift marked the beginning of a long evolution in how the word was understood in everyday language. The earliest origin of the word comes from a game called Handicap, which dates back to at least the 1600s in England. It involved two people exchanging items, often of unequal value, with a third person acting as a neutral judge. The judge would determine the difference in value between the two items and decide what compensation was needed to make the exchange fair. The person receiving the more valuable item would pay the difference in money. After the decision, both participants would place their hands into a cap to signal agreement. If both accepted the terms, the trade was completed. This physical gesture symbolized fairness through agreement. Over time, the phrase "hand in cap" was shortened and gradually merged into the single word handicap. By the 18th century, the concept of handicap had moved into the world of horse racing, where it became a structured system used to balance competition. Horses of greater speed and strength were given additional weight to carry, while slower horses carried less. The goal was not to punish the stronger horses, but to create races that were more competitive and less predictable. This allowed different horses to have a fair chance of winning, even if their natural abilities were not equal. Because horse racing was widely popular at the time, the term handicap became strongly associated with the idea of adjusting conditions to ensure fairness in competition. This usage reinforced the original meaning of balancing unequal advantages. During the 19th century, the meaning of handicap began to expand beyond structured systems and into more general descriptions of disadvantage. Instead of being used only in games or sports, it started to describe obstacles that people faced in everyday life. These could include financial hardship, social inequality, or physical and mental conditions. As this usage became more common, the word gradually shifted from describing situations to describing individuals themselves. This change marked an important turning point in its evolution. What had once been a neutral term for balancing differences began to carry more personal weight, often emphasizing limitation rather than adjustment. This reflected broader changes in how society used language to categorize human experience. A common explanation for the origin of handicap is that it comes from the phrase "cap in hand," suggesting a person holding out a cap while begging, While this idea is widely repeated, it is not supported by historical evidence. Linguistic research consistently traces the word back to the hand-in-cap trading game rather than any association with begging. The confusion likely developed after the word became linked to disability and disadvantage in later usage. People naturally tried to connect the modern meaning to a more literal and visual explanation that seemed to fit. Although the cap-in-hand interpretation is easy to imagine, it is a later misunderstanding rather than the true origin. This shows how meanings can shift not only through usage, but also through reinterpretation over time. Today, the word handicap is still used in some specific contexts, but its role in everyday language has changed significantly. In sports such as horse racing and golf, it continues to describe systems that adjust conditions to balance competition between participants of different abilities. In this sense, it still reflects its original idea of creating fairness through adjustment. However, when used to describe people, the term has become less common and is often considered outdated or inappropriate. Many now prefer more neutral language such as person with a disability or simply disabled. This shift reflects a broader change in how society views language and inclusion. The history of the word handicap shows how language can evolve in unexpected ways over time. What began as a method for creating fairness in trade and competition slowly moved into structured sports, then expanded into descriptions of personal disadvantage, and eventually became part of modern discussions about disability and inclusion. Although its original meaning focused on balance and fairness, later interpretations shifted its tone and associations. Looking at its journey today, it becomes clear that words are not fixed. They change as society changes, shaped by how people use them, understand them, and eventually redefine them. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.